Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is
We're
James.
billing this as the start of season 9, James. How many seasons? 9 seasons. Can you imagine? Next season will be double digits. Let's do our absolute best to survive until then.
Yeah, let's try. That would be a shame to end at the end of season 9.
And not get a 10th season in.
Yeah, exactly
Indeed.
that. It's mad though, isn't it? When you think about it.
What are your goals for FPL? Your FPL season this year? Just survive. Just make it to season 10. That's it. That's exactly what I'm hoping for this year. Yeah, indeed. For the first time ever this season, I am going to get a 5-figure rank. Lock yourselves in, listeners. Buckle up. Get that seatbelt fastened because it's going to be a roller coaster. 5-figure rank on the way. It's going to be 99,999, but it's still going to be a 5-figure rank.
You'll have a lot of flakes for that anyway.
Indeed. Cool. We're going to be talking about the fixtures because
that's all we can talk about.
And we haven't got any prices on players. We could do price predictions, but let's be honest, I don't think that's going to be particularly useful just at the moment. And it's very rare that we get any major surprises on those. And also, we need something to talk about when the player prices drop. So let's not just speculate too much about them, but we can talk about the fixtures that did drop on Wednesday, as well as the first weekend of TV fixtures, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a look at some little notes on all the teams, just some things, kind of some pointers. This is more like an overview at this point. We'll do deeper dives into stuff later on during, obviously, pre-season. We are going to have a little bit of a dive into captaincy early on across sort of like the first 10 today. But I want to start by covering off just a couple of notes in terms of the schedule. So it's quite similar to last season. We expected very much that it would be. There's a couple of things to particularly note out for. 5 fixtures over the Christmas period this year. There's 2 midweek sets of fixtures in between 17 to 21. So normally you kind of get 4 groups of Premier League fixtures over that period. That's 5. So there'll be 5 back-to-back Premier League fixtures. So a bumper Christmas period for FPL managers this year. And that will feel very different to how it will feel probably at the end of March into early April. You may remember last year we had the FA Cup quarterfinals after the March international break.
Yep.
That's still the same, but then it was game week 30, a midweek set of Premier League fixtures. It goes straight into the European quarterfinal first legs this time. So in theory, I
feel like I remember March last year, West Ham, we only had 2 games or something in the whole month.
Yeah, it's going to be similar. Someone is highly likely to go 4 weeks without playing in the Premier League between
and that's
mid-March and mid-April.
With an international break in that as well included.
Correct. We've got Carabao Cup final, international break, FA Cup quarter final. I mean, not only that, but actually in theory, someone might not play for 4 weeks.
Wow.
If their scheduled opponent's playing in the Carabao Cup final, and then obviously they're not in an FA Cup quarter final and they're not in Europe, there could be like a huge break in there for someone, which is wild when we talk about teams having 5 fixtures over the course of 17 days over Christmas.
Why are they cramming in an extra round of fixtures at Christmas? Any thoughts around?
Yeah, there's nowhere else to cram the bloody fixtures in. So it's literally, it's what I'd say about, FA Cup replays and all that. There's no give really in terms of the schedule. Christmas is also going to be doubly significant for FPL managers this year because AFCON is on this winter. Now, we're commonly used to players sort of leaving around about sort of FA Cup third round. Well, they might be returning around about that period this time because players, the AFCON starts for game week 17, which is the weekend around about, I think it's the 20th of December. So anyone playing in AFCON is going to miss pretty much, almost certainly, going to miss all 5 of those Christmas fixtures. The AFCON final is scheduled for the weekend of game week 22. So it's anyone who's playing in AFCON is highly likely to miss all of that Christmas schedule. That obviously includes Mo Salah, Omar Marmoush, plenty of other interesting assets as well.
Yeah, and we got stung a little with rotation around Christmas last year as well because of the congestion of the fixtures. It's not going to be any different this year if they're adding in an extra fixture. So now we've got double jeopardy with rotation and missing players. Immediately to my mind, I'm thinking, right, okay, can I hold my wild card back to fix up a team that I feel will survive that period potentially? And it
Um,
still probably won't. Do you know what I mean? It's
I
difficult.
think again, this is something we'll cover more in pre-season, but with the way the fixture landed, there is probably more of a case to be holding on to this wild card. I mean, you think of that, Salah and Marmoush, for example, could be really popular players heading into that period of AFCON, and you've got a couple of other players you're unhappy with. You may well on that wild card heading into that sort of game week 17.
I mean, just
Ma-
before that, Salah's got like Sunderland, West Ham,
yeah,
Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, Tottenham. Well, Tottenham is 17, so even the Brighton, you're not going to want to not have him for that, surely.
and you
Even
meant
Marmoush, he's got Leeds, Fulham, Sunderland, Palace, and then obviously goes into West Ham. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's something I want to come back to on game week 15 later on in this podcast. But game week 15 and game week 19 fixtures are reversed.
right.
So everybody is playing, whoever they play in 15, they're playing again in 19. Look who Liverpool and Man City are playing across them too.
Yeah,
It's Leeds and
Leeds and
Sunderland,
Sunderland.
respectively.
Yeah,
And Newcastle got Burnley as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
all the fixtures in 15 to 19 and reverse. You might even have, that could be, couldn't it? Salah, Haaland, Isak could easily end up being the three most powerful players in the game, couldn't they? Isak's getting more and more linked with Liverpool, Suj, by the way.
Wow.
Um, I don't know if there's anything in this or not. I definitely think there's interest.
Did they win the lottery or something?
But they don't spend anything for
Yeah,
a
I was
while,
going to
would
say
they? So
they've kept their pennies
they're in a strong position.
in the
Jarell
bank for a
Quansah,
while.
we think now is going to buy Leverkusen for
Leverkusen.
reported sort of like 40 million or so. That will go 100% on the books, won't it? So
Yep. Yep.
in terms of cup dates, I'm not going to cover blanks and doubles too much now. My projections for blanks and doubles, by the way, are already up on FPL team site, and that's probably where I recommend going in terms of having a look for price predictions at the moment. You can create drafts now if you want to and stuff like that on FPL team. It is similar to last year. So Europa League final was in between 37 and 38. And I'd say that's particularly important, bearing in mind that Aston Villa are scheduled to play Liverpool in game week 37. Aston Villa was scheduled to play Tottenham in game week 37 last year. And obviously Villa are in the Europa League this time. So it could be that if that game was postponed, if either team got to the FA Cup final, Villa got to Europa League final, that one could get brought forward. Same as we spoke about with Villa Tottenham last year. It's similar in terms of bringing fixtures forward. So FA Cup semi-final is probably going to get brought forward to the week before, as was the case last year. And the Carabao Cup final this year, it's scheduled same period, but it's game week 31, whereas I think it would have been game week 29 last year.
Yep.
And again, subject to who has their games postponed for the Carabao Cup final, we really should be prepared for the possibility, as was the case with the Villa Liverpool game last year, for it to be brought forward sort of 3 or 4 game weeks. Game week 26 and 27 are the playoff round for those teams who finish between 9th and 23rd in the European competitions. So if a fixture can get brought forward to probably game week 27, it probably will be. I know Manchester City is scheduled to play Crystal Palace on Carabao Cup final weekend. That was obviously the FA Cup final last year. Obviously, Palace, fingers crossed for them, have got European involvement as well. So if that fixture got postponed, and if either of those teams have got a playoff in between 26 27, that will have to get pushed back. And that, I think, is the key point where the Premier League said in their statement the other day about be prepared for games to be postponed and rearranged at really short notice. Because if that sort of circumstance happens and Palace keep progressing in Europa League, for example, like it's all over the place.
Yep.
There's nowhere really to be putting against. Someone's going to have to play probably twice in 3 days under that sort of circumstance. So that's miles away. Essentially, blanks double is going to look very, very similar to last year. There is no reason to expect anything in the opening periods of the season unless something unforeseen circumstance happens, such as the Everton Liverpool game being postponed for high winds last year. Just a note on pairings. So this is where you've got 2 clubs are grouped together and one of the 2 is always at home and obviously the other one is always away. There's a number of them that are fairly obvious, the kind of the local derbies. So
Derbies,
Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Fulham has been listed as one. Obviously, the Merseyside derby, Everton, Liverpool, City, and Manchester United, and obviously now Newcastle, Sunderland. So there's five that are derbies, so they're easy enough to remember. The other ones are probably the interesting ones. So Villa and Burnley are paired.
Claret and blue issue.
Yeah, but if you're trying to think of like rotational pairings, are you gonna if you've got a Villa defender and a Burnley defender, you're probably gonna play the Villa defender most often
Every single
anyway,
time. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest could be a more interesting one.
Yep.
Same too with Brentford and Brighton is paired. Maybe Crystal Palace and Wolves as well. And the other one is Leeds and West Ham. Quite why Crystal Palace is paired with Wolves and Leeds with West Ham rather than Palace with West Ham and Leeds with Wolves, I'm not quite sure, to tell you the truth. I don't know the reasoning behind that, but I would have thought Palace West Ham would have made more logical sense geographically. But
Yeah, I mean they're so far apart in terms of travel or policing. It doesn't really make much difference. But maybe it's to do with like having games in London at the same time.
yeah,
But that would make more sense. I don't know, to be honest with you. It doesn't
yeah.
feel like Leeds West Ham as a pairing. Let's dive in and find our cheap players. Even the Brentford Brighton, like Brentford, we don't know what we're going to get, do we, at the moment? So whether or not there's some value there, let's see. Depends,
Very dependent on pricing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we will have a deeper dive as well. Other pairings once pricing is out and we've got an idea of 4.5s that'd be interesting, and maybe also attacking ones. Right? You think
Yeah.
of last year, the
Goalkeeper
likes of
pairings
Morgan
might be
Rogers,
interesting.
Jacob Murphy. You look now and you think that Enzo Fernandez be another one. They're all going to get price jumps this year. You're thinking now, who bloody could be a good 5.0, and it's so difficult to say that there could be anything out there at the moment. But we may feel very differently once the pricing comes out. What we can think about is captaincy, because we obviously know that Mo Salah and Erling Haaland are not going to come in at sort of like sub 10 million. They're going to be the two highest priced players by a distance, aren't they? Who do we expect anyone else over 10?
Isak,
Yeah,
Saka,
Saka and Palmer.
Saka, Palmer, Isak.
I think
Yeah,
that's it, isn't it?
I don't think there's anyone else justifiable.
Verts maybe
I
could
mean,
be
that
10,
would
maybe.
be
I think.
nah. I mean, nah. I don't see that. I don't see that. And it's only if someone else was to join the league. But even let's say a Gokares turned up somewhere, I don't see them jumping straight into that 10 million plus bracket. To be honest with you, there's no one else that's justified it based on previous season's performance.
No. One of the key things I think I was thinking about, and many people know I've bench boosted in game week one the last couple of years. For me, one of the big kind of things that outlined first and foremost was if I was going to take that strategy, and I'm not saying I won't, I was looking to take Salah and Haaland on straight away in the way I did with, say, Isak versus Southampton in game week one last year. When you look at game week one, you do think, I'm probably going to need to captain one of these bastards. So Salah at home to Bournemouth. Haaland is at Wolves. Alternatives, perhaps Palmer against Crystal Palace, subject to what Chelsea do in the Club World Cup. Palace at home doesn't
Yeah, I mean,
scream
both
captaincy, does it?
the Haaland and the Palmer is so dependent on what happens at Club World Cup. To be honest with you, that why risk it? Salah at home, opening day of the season versus Bournemouth. Why risk it? A Bournemouth that has lost its goalkeeper, maybe its entire defence.
Bowen at Sunderland.
Is a good shout. Like anybody that wants to try and play it differently, I think Bowen at Sunderland would be a really good shout.
There's the element of the unknown there, isn't there? I mean, Sunderland will obviously kind of invest in their squad, so you are.
Yeah, but the known is still the known that they're a newly promoted side, and Bowen is Mr. Consistent and ended the season so well. Yeah, so I think that if someone really wanted to go against it, if for whatever reason you heard that Salah wasn't available, Haaland's come back late, because I think City could probably beat Wolves without Haaland in the team. It's not like they haven't got alternatives. I think Bowen will be very popular if for any reason Salah wasn't available. But there's times to pick when you want to go against, right? And if you think that 70 to 80% of the game might be on Salah, I don't feel like that's a sensible time to be taking a punt.
Don't always do sensible here, Suj.
Yeah, I know. But it's as when do you go against? And I don't think opening day Salah versus Bournemouth at home is an opportunity to go against.
I think he's best as it would stand now. If it was coming up this weekend, I think, yeah, you it'd be Salah's ownership would be really, really high. Subject to obviously what the price is. Who knows? It
Of
might
course. Yeah.
really slam him in really high. I can't particularly see it personally. I'd kind of rule out at this moment a Tottenham player against Burnley in terms of your planning. So it could be you land anything. Yeah, sure. What about Solanke for 1 week opening day or something like that? I think the fact Tottenham are playing PSG in the Super Cup final 3 days earlier would be enough to put me off.
Plus Burnley's
Every other,
defensive record.
yeah.
Burnley
The
had
only
a
thing,
good defensive record in the championship. So
yeah,
do you
the
want
only
to
thing I'd say
on that?
about Burnley's defensive record, and I'd recommend listening back to a pod I did after Burnley and Leeds both got promoted with Jack Toner and Ed Salinger, our new Leeds correspondent, where we looked at some of the metrics of Burnley and Leeds. And obviously, Burnley's defensive record was insane in the
Yep.
championship in terms of goals conceded last year. But Leeds' expected goals conceded was better than Burnley's.
Okay.
Like to say they outperformed their expected goals against, like
Yep.
by more than like 100%, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think would they concede, I don't know, 18 or 19 goals,
It was less than 20.
which is madness. But their expected goals conceded was like about 35, 36, something like that. So, I mean, if the reversion to the mean happens in the Premier League, they'll take a few slappings, won't they? And I reflect on Russell Martin's comments when he went on Monday Night Football. Was like, you can't understand the jump.
The gap is big. The
Now,
gap
also,
is big.
we do know that Scott Parker's teams were solid enough in the Premier League. These Fulham team that went down were actually difficult to beat. Didn't score nearly enough goals. But you could look at a Tottenham player game week 1, but I don't think you would
No.
because they're the only team that plays in the midweek before, and it is 3 p.m. Saturday following a game in Europe on the Wednesday night. Arsenal go to Manchester United game week 1, so probably not Saka, despite all the jokes about Manchester United over the last year or so. But Saka is, this is interesting. Saka is the standout captaincy in game week 2 for me. Home to Leeds.
Yep. Yep. Looking at everyone else's fixtures, yeah, there isn't anything that jumps off the page.
Haaland at home to Tottenham. But presume it's not Angie's Tottenham, is it? If it was Angie's Tottenham, I think you'd go, yeah, bollocks, Haaland.
Yeah,
But
you're a Man City's bogey team.
there's that, yeah.
Yeah.
That every year it's got to end eventually. Salah's at Newcastle. So then that kind of Isak against obviously Liverpool as well. And I know those two players both returned really well in the 3-3 draw last year, but it's probably not the one that screams at you. So I think it's interesting. Saka at home to Leeds. And what's really interesting about that is, as we'll probably cover, like Arsenal's run of fixtures is shite
Yeah. Yeah.
at the start. Now, game week 3, I think possibly is a little bit more open. So you've got Isak at Leeds, Haaland is at Brighton, Salah at home
Just
to Arsenal.
before you jump on to game week 3, you haven't put Chelsea player like Palmer away at West Ham. You saw what they did to West Ham in the first half of the game last year. I still think that Chelsea
year
away
before,
at West
boss.
Ham. Was that the year before?
Yeah, you lost 2-1 on like a Monday night there last season. You played all right.
No, at our place though. Our place, they beat us
Yeah, but
handsomely.
that's under Lopetegui, man. You're thinking
Yeah, I
about the
get
3-0.
that.
I'm saying
I
under
get that.
Moyes, you lost there 5-0 the year before that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Palmer, if I didn't want Saka for whatever reason, I do think Palmer would be my next best
Do
option.
you know
in that
what? Do you
position.
know what happened the last time you played Chelsea as your first home game of the season?
Was that when Masuaku scored? No,
No,
that was a different. When he scored that cross
it wasn't.
shot.
But you did win. You won 3-1 on this day as well. So that's only a couple of years ago. Yeah, options game week 2 quite thin on the ground. Game week 3, as said, I think Isak at Leeds is fine. Haaland at Brighton's okay. Salah game at Anfield against Arsenal. I put Cunha against Burnley. Obviously, look, that could be Bruno Fernandes, subject to where he plays. Might even be Brian Bumo, for example. But I think
Yeah,
it's worth
price
acknowledging.
is going to be very interesting to see what those guys come in at.
It's worth acknowledging Manchester United potentially at home to Burnley in game week 3. I think that's probably Isak's best. And then that got me thinking. So you're saying, I don't want to take Salah on first week. Completely agree with you. I'm now looking at that and going, I wonder if could you go Bowen in 1, Saka in 2, Isak in 3. And you know what I'm thinking, Suj? I think they're getting brave here.
Yeah.
I don't advise it for anybody else.
What, going no Haaland?
And no Salah, maybe.
Yeah. You could. I mean, you could.
Problem is, then Salah goes to Burnley in game week 4, and you think, oh yeah, I want that one again. But
And
Isak at home to Wolves would offer an alternative, maybe. Haaland has United at home. I listed Mateta at home to Sunderland as a real maybe differential one in game week 4, but Palace's fixtures aren't great. There's an interesting stat on them that I'll mention a bit about Crystal Palace, which I think is why I'd recommend people coming up with their own FDRs. By the way, so I don't think many people will start with Mateta, for example, or Eze. Eze could move. We don't think so at the moment. Game week 5 is not a thriller for captaincy. Salah at home to Everton. So he'll be the most popular, but Merseyside derby's not often flooded with goals. I put Watkins at Sunderland, Wood at Burnley.
yep,
There's a couple of alternatives. That's a weekend. City play Arsenal. Newcastle go to Bournemouth. Chelsea go to Manchester United. I don't think they particularly scream out. Tottenham are at Brighton. So I think Salah then best 4 and 5 to bring it back around. So then you're going, oh shit, Salah best, I think 3 of the first 5. And interestingly, I don't think Haaland's best till game week 6. Burnley at home. Salah goes to Palace in that one. Couple of alternatives. Again, Wood, perhaps home to Sunderland. Watkins at home to Fulham. Game week 6 does feel like a Salah versus Haaland shootout. And you're not going to take on Haaland at home to Burnley if you've got.
yeah, no, you're not.
No. Game week 7, I think then is Haaland again. Not quite so obvious, but I'd say him at
Probably,
Brentford. He's
probably, yeah.
probably best. You got Saka at home to West Ham. Salah goes to Chelsea.
That's non-starter Saka at home to West Ham.
What, because you always win at the Emirates, yeah?
We haven't conceded there, like I said yesterday, and whether it was the Patreon or the other pod, I don't remember, but we ain't conceded there for years.
Yeah, you know what will make up for that is they'll probably make up for a couple of years of being pissed off and slap you by about 5.
8-0.
Watkins and Cunha play Burnley, Sunderland, respectively, in game week 7, both at home as well. And I think Haaland is probably best again in game week 8, actually. Home to Everton. Salah has Manchester United at home, which is a fixture that he's never performed particularly well in. I put Bowen against Brentford as an alternative. We don't know what we're going to get from Brentford at the moment, do we? It's very difficult to say. Talking of which, I think Salah at Brentford probably 9, probably best. Palmer has Sunderland. Isak has Fulham. Saka has Palace. Haaland in game week 9 goes to Villa Park. Villa are strong at home. Haven't lost at home in the last 18 in the Premier League. Game week 10, I think Haaland's probably best again. Home to Bournemouth. Salah's got Villa at home. Saka at Burnley. It does feel like, on the face of it, that you probably want Salah and Haaland. If you just want to completely cover it up. Clearly, if you have those two players, it'll cover you for captaincy all the way through.
I think
certainly until they play each other in game week 11.
You went without for the first 7 or 8 weeks, was it last year? I think you got him in, 9 maybe, Salah?
8,
9 or
I
10?
think I got
8.
Salah last year. Yeah. 8 or 9, yeah.
If you go against, what you did have when you went against was your captain's hit. When you went Bumo, you had Saka, you had the Palmer 25-point haul when he scored
Watkins.
as well. Yeah. If you go against, there's nothing wrong with it. You need your captains to haul. That's the thing. And you were lucky. I'm going to say lucky. You had a good run, but it gives you the option of spreading the captaincy to the next best player. So where you talk about maybe going Isak, mixing it up with Isak, Palmer, Bowen, picking it fixture by fixture, I think Manchester United under the radar, the likes of Cunha that you mentioned potentially with that Burnley game and that Sunderland game, I think it can be done. But just know that as soon as you miss a captaincy, you will feel the urge to go back there very quickly. It's the captaincy that will make or break a decision like going against Salah.
You say I'll feel that urge, right? I wildcarded in game week 3 last year. Haaland got a hat-trick at West Ham. Didn't own him.
Yeah,
Salah,
in the second week, though, but in the second week, he'd had that hat-trick against Ipswich, and they'd both done okay in one and 2.
Yeah, and then he had Brentford in 4, so I could have panicked again. Salah went off at Old Trafford in the same game week as well. So I wildcarded about both of them. And I think Haaland was 17 and Salah was, I don't know, 16 point or something like that.
Yeah, but you did well with others.
Yeah, but the point being is, I survived that Like, how bad could it be? What's the chance of Haaland getting like 8 goals in 3 games again and not owning him when he is well owned and still surviving it?
Because you were able to spread the money and have good captaincies yourself.
Yeah, I certainly think my instincts at the moment is to be very, very brave to take Mo Salah on. That's my instincts at the moment. I think if it had to be one of Salah or Haaland at the moment, it's Salah. Add in the complications of City obviously coming back from the Club World Cup. It's worth repeating for those who hadn't heard. Technically, the players are entitled to a 3-week holiday. That's mandatory during the course of a consecutive in the course of a season. So that has to be at the end of the Club World Cup for City and Chelsea players. So if they get to the final, it's 4 weeks then to the start of the Premier League season. There is no suggestion, by the way, at the moment that City or Chelsea's games would be postponed from game week 1. I don't think they will be at this moment, even if they got to the final.
Okay.
Just a point on captaincy before we kind of move on some notes to the teams. I just wanted to go back to game week 15, which I'd mentioned earlier. That Salah having Leeds away and Haaland having Sunderland at home. Can you imagine what that's going to be like in the build up to that? Just to find out that they've both been shit and we all captain Isak against Burnley instead.
Yeah. That really smacks of a week where the hype on X is going to be
Well,
huge.
it gets a little bit more interesting when you actually look either side of game week 15. So the week before, Salah has Sunderland at home in game week 14. The week before that, Haaland has Leeds at home in game week 13. And the week after game week 15, Haaland goes to Sunderland in game week 16. Then Mo Salah goes to AFCON, presumably.
I think Haaland goes to Palace away, right, in 16. He's got Sunderland in 15. Yeah.
You're quite
And
right.
then,
Sunderland 15. It's Isak goes to Sunderland in 16 after Burnley at home in 15. So even Isak does offer a little bit of an alternative. You've got Tottenham at home in 14.
And they know how to beat you. Well, they have the last couple of years.
Noticed, particularly at St James's, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's not me putting the boot in, but they've racked up big scores against you in the last few years, which is gold, which is Isak.
It's worth saying that set game week 14. By the way, that is a midweek set of fixtures. So yeah, I look forward to Tyneside on a Wednesday night. I'll see you there, mate.
That'll be like end of November, won't it? Lovely.
No, it's December, I think.
Oh, it'll be start of December.
I mean, December is so jammed in terms of fixtures. One note as well, it's a very minor one, but Nottingham Forest match day 6 of the Conference League, assuming touchwood they make it through to the group stage, clashes with the Carabao Cup quarterfinals,
right?
As would have been the case for Chelsea last year if Chelsea got to the Carabao Cup quarterfinals. Under the circumstance that Forest were in the Carabao Cup quarterfinals and obviously in the Conference League, they probably are somewhere over December and January going to have to play twice in 3 days. Highly likely. I'm sure that what they would hope under that circumstance is that Forest have already got the Conference League wrapped up. They're already through. And then wing it that way. I wouldn't be surprised under that circumstance if they even played on consecutive days.
Okay.
Let's talk some notes on some teams, and we'll do a little bit more kind of on the expected top 8 or so. And again, going to go through these teams in order as I've listed on my planner, which those on YouTube can see. The reason I've gone up to game week 21 on there, by the way, guys, for those watching on YouTube, is that's the end of the Christmas period. So that kind of felt more of a halfway point to me rather than game week 19. And they're ordered in kind of bookmakers odds at the moment, so it's not just up to me. So if anybody thinks Villa and Man United are very close in the betting in terms of 6th, 7th at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, no, Villa are a stronger side at the moment until proven otherwise. Let's talk Liverpool first. I've got the 19th on my ticker across the first 3 game weeks. It's a challenging start. Yes, Bournemouth at home opening day, but then Newcastle away, Arsenal at home doesn't scream. It's worth saying, as said earlier, they did draw 3-3 at Newcastle last season. Obviously, the 2-2 at Arsenal was at a period where the game was irrelevant for the two teams, basically. But you could look at those 3 games and say, well, Liverpool scored 8 goals in those games last season.
Yeah, I think with Liverpool, we're going to see an improved Liverpool this year as well. Like, they're doing bits in the transfer window. Any game at Anfield, even Arsenal at home, Bournemouth at home. When the game's at Anfield, they're favourites regardless of who the opposition is. So yeah, I think Liverpool quite rightly top. I get it why they're 19th on your list. That Arsenal Newcastle fixtures on paper are difficult, but I see them getting something out of all of these. Yeah.
Well, at the moment, it looks like they're going to be stronger, right? Which, from their position, is obviously a great position to be in.
Yeah, they will be.
Their fixtures are like a lot of the side. I think the last 2 seasons, the fixtures have landed really nicely in the sense it's not obvious. I think we've had seasons where it's been like, oh, right, this is madness not to start with 3 Man City players. That's genuinely how it's felt in some pre-seasons. There's not a single team I look at and I think I've got to have trouble with them. None. That's really good. And it's difficult to find even periods where you think, oh, this is great. So I think Liverpool's best period of the season is probably the period we kind of half mentioned, 14 to 19. Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, Tottenham, Wolves, Leeds. But Salah's going to miss the last 3 of that. So are you going to just put Gakpo in there instead if he's classified as a midfielder and wait for Mo to come back? Or do you still want that treble Liverpool then when they go to Arsenal in game week 21? Like, everybody who has a good little spell like that seems to have something in it that disrupts it quite badly, quite quickly afterwards. So after those first 3 for Liverpool challenge, you go, oh yes, Burnley, Everton. But then run through them fixtures afterwards. Palace away, Chelsea away, United at home, Brentford, Villa, City, Forest. It's not great. Like, it's not bad, but it's not like, oh, I've got to attack treble ups there. There aren't many prolonged runs that any team particularly has. A couple of interesting notes I did notice on Liverpool. There's 3 international breaks in the first half of the season, and then there's one in March as usual. By the way, just briefly, 3-week break for the international break in the 26-27 season, so just so you know.
3 weeks.
Yep.
Whew.
So less breakups, but longer breakup.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's getting to a breaking point. This whole schedule, something's gonna give, and it's gonna give very soon.
Yeah, I don't think the Premier League want that give to become an 18-team division, by the way, but it might be where we head eventually. Before those 3 international breaks for Liverpool, they've faced Arsenal, Chelsea, and Manchester City. Which is interesting. Now, I don't look at that as any form of advantage, by the way. There's every chance all 3 of those games will be like 4:30 on a Sunday, you would think, most probably. So it should mean that they get like at least 4-day gaps, because obviously as a consequence of them playing these league games before international breaks, as European games just before, but then they will get at least a 4-day gap. But of course, that's the same for their opponents here as well. Yeah. So they might be good high-level games of football, actually. And one interesting quirk about Liverpool, again, is kind of irrelevant, but their last 6 home games were all against London sides.
Brentford, Chelsea, Palace, Fulham, Tottenham, West Ham. Yep.
And the only other one is Arsenal. That's in game week 3. So between game week 3 and game week 28, Liverpool don't play a London side at home. Arsenal, it's well documented, this difficult start to the season. I've got them bottom of my ticker across the first 6, which is Manchester United away, at Leeds at home, Liverpool away, Nottingham Forest at home, Manchester City at home, and Newcastle away. I'd remind Arsenal fans that everybody has the same 38 sets of fixtures. And as I said on my Ask James stream on Wednesday, I said, if they come out St James's Park top of the league after game week 6, I think they'll go on and win it. So the opportunity is there to take advantage of those fixtures. It is a rough start though, isn't it? There wouldn't have been many circumstances that made us think, I don't want an Arsenal defender at the start, but arguably we don't.
Yeah, I do. I'm looking at it, trying to play devil's advocate at both sides of it. United away, I think United are going to be dark horses this year. I think they're going to be quite strong. I think they're doing good bits in the window. Leeds at home, yeah, they'll win. Liverpool away at Anfield, never easy. The fact that Forest and City are at the Emirates is an advantage. But there'll be 2 tough games, and then Newcastle away is not easy. It is a rough start. There's no 2 ways about it. Yeah, you'd expect them to. Yeah.
Now, the consequence of that, of course, is that the following 6, 7 to 12, before they go to Stamford Bridge in game week 13, and they also go to Villa Park in 15. That's what I said. As soon as you've got like a good period, you look at Arsenal from bloody hell, their next 2 away games after.
Brentford and Wolves at home. So I would count that up to 60, because you can never have like 10 good fixtures in a row. It's the Premier League. But yeah, from 7 onwards, they do have a really good run.
West Ham at home, Fulham away, Palace at home, Burnley and Sunderland away, and the North London derby at home, which, let's be honest, they always win. That's so it goes from bad six to very good six. It's the sort of thing that might make you think, oh, I want to jump to wildcards who have Arsenal players in game week 7 and come off maybe Chelsea and Liverpool players who play each other. These are the sort of little maybe quirks we'll look at in a little bit more detail later on in pre-season. I've got, in terms of them also, from the expected top 7, so that's not including Tottenham, by the way, they've only got Manchester City away from game week 15 onwards. So if you look at their away games up to game week 15, Man United, Liverpool, Newcastle, Fulham, Burnley, Sunderland, Chelsea, Villa. So there's maybe Burnley and Sunderland might be the weakest too, but the rest of it could easily, in theory, be sort of the top 6.
Yep.
Tottenham, they go to in game week 27. Manchester City is in game week 33, which the eagle-eyed will note is that's probably first game as part of a double. And by the way, Liverpool are Everton in game week 33. For City themselves, I've got them 4th on my ticker across the first 8. I think it's probably a little bit better than it looks and is dragged down a little bit by the away fixtures at the Emirates in game week 5, and then afterwards at Aston Villa in game week 9. They've got all 3 promoted teams at home relatively early, City. Game week 6, game week 13, and game week 15. That starts with Burnley 16, ends with Leeds 13, Sunderland 15. And those are the fixtures that we fear Haaland the most.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And you've got 3 of them before the winter period. The period, though, again, though, so you say, right, so I definitely need Haaland across that. But then, again, looking at the period sort of like 9 to 12, Villa away, Bournemouth at home, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away. You think, that's not great. But then Salah's fixtures, I think, over those 4 weeks are not extraordinary either for comparison. Brentford, Villa, Man City, and Nottingham Forest.
City are very much a watching brief at the moment for me. We know the power of Haaland, but with everybody else, maybe Gvardiol, with everybody else, I feel like it's let's see how they set up. Let's see what we're going to get out of this City. Let's see what impact Rodri has now that he's going to be back in the team, touch wood, that he stays fit and stuff. It's a very much a watching brief for me with City. I don't feel like, despite their good fixtures, bar Haaland, I'm going to stack up. It's similar to what you said earlier, right? You don't feel the urge that I need 3 of these. If City were 4th on your ticket at any other given time, you might want to stack up with 3 of them. I don't feel the urge straight away with City.
No, and of course, as kind of said with Chelsea as well, like what's the reaction from the Club World Cup and stuff.
That's it. That's why it's more of a watch and brief, really.
I think the key period for City to bear in mind for fantasy managers, this is another reason why we maybe talk about maybe using a wild card a little bit later on, is between game weeks 13 and 24, they only play one of last season's top 6. So that's obviously the period where players are going away for AFCON. So includes Salah. Also, of course, includes Marmoush, who would maybe nick some Haaland number 9 minutes, possibly, right? So Haaland over that period, we think is pretty safe. That one game, by the way, is Chelsea at home in game week 20. It's not anything to hold any massive fears. And I mean, Liverpool go to Fulham that day, Arsenal go to Bournemouth, so it doesn't scream for alternatives. Chelsea are obviously at City themselves. So, yeah, I think City over the winter period going to be really important. The other clubs won't want to get to that period, sort of game week 13, I think, chasing City, because they might pull away if that's the circumstance. I don't think they will be top at that period, though, by the way. Newcastle, I've got 18th on my ticker across the first 8.
Tough start as well.
That's despite, we've obviously said there's a couple of games in there you think, oh, I'd potentially look at captain this. Leeds away in game week 3, Wolves at home game week 4. But I think it's a cluster across the first 8. That's pretty challenging. They've got last season's top 4 all at home before Christmas. So Liverpool in 2, Arsenal in game week 6, Manchester City in game week 12, and then Chelsea in game week 17. I've got them on a really good run of fixtures also over the winter period from game week 15 to 22 onwards. What I would describe as 6 of 8 fixtures I've got marked as green. There's fixtures against Burnley home and away, Sunderland away, Leeds at home. There's a trip to Wolves, also Crystal Palace at home. Their last 8 away games, interestingly, and this is one probably fans of clubs will notice a little bit more, is a really, really rough run of away games to finish with. Their last 8 away games are Liverpool, Tottenham, Man City, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham. Very challenging.
Just looking at the Champions League midweeks as well with them, James. You've got Wolves before the first, Wolves, then Bournemouth away after the first, Arsenal at home and Forest at home between the second match day. So if they've got a home fixture in match day 2 of the Champions League, that's probably quite helpful for them because there's not a lot of travel involved over that period. For the Arsenal at home game, gives you a little bit more confidence, maybe.
I did look at every team who's in Europe and their fixtures before and afterwards to see if there were any particular patterns. And I only made a note on one of them, which is actually on Palace, which I'll touch on in a little bit.
Yeah, we know Newcastle did struggle last time round. I mean, it was adapting whether their squad's bigger, better, whether or not we need to bear that in mind with Newcastle now. I don't know. Any thoughts on how European football would impact them?
It's very difficult to say for Newcastle Chelsea. We obviously saw what happened a couple of years ago. It kind of blew up for Newcastle badly, but it blew up because of injuries as well. Their big problem is once you get below the layers of the kind of the best 12, 13 players, it's quite a drop off, I think. If they've got their strongest team out, they're a match for anybody. Chelsea, you could say, oh, they played in the Conference League last year. It's completely uncomparable. So we'll have to see. I would think Maresca's style tactically would be able to negotiate it better than Eddie Howe cannot go into 3 games a week trying to play 100-mile-an-hour football all the time. You can do it across a given week, for example, but to do it all the time, players are going to, you've seen Ange Ball, you've seen, right?
Yep.
Chelsea, I've got them third on the ticker across the first 3 and first 4. And it's all London derbies to start with for them. Crystal Palace at home, West Ham away, Fulham at home, Brentford away. None of them scream gimme, but I would say as a cluster of 4 fixtures, that's not
Decent.
a terrible start. And obviously a little bit unpredictable. You could maybe say good first 6 as well, right? Because I think United and Brighton are probably 2 teams could be really good or could be very ordinary. Difficult to say at this moment in time. I noticed a couple of little periods for them that are interesting. So they're another one I think have got a good run a little bit before Christmas, this one. So after they play Liverpool in game week 7, then go to Forest in game week 8, got a really nice period 9 to 16. Sunderland, Tottenham, Wolves, Burnley, Arsenal at home, Leeds, Bournemouth, Everton. But then as a consequence of that, there's rougher runs for them later on, which includes a run at the end. They've got another good run game, which 21 to 27, which is similar to what I've just said. But I've got them across the last 11 games. I've only got them for 1 green fixture, and that's at Sunderland on the final day. So from 28 to 37, they've got Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, City at home, United at home, Brighton away, Forest at home, Liverpool away, Tottenham at home. Their running is bloody awful, Chelsea. But they're one of the ones where I think you can look at them and go, there's a good 6, a good 6. Lots of the other teams you're going, that's a good 3 or 4. They've got a couple of clusters, Chelsea, but is really good, really bad, really good, really bad. Aston Villa, I think of the clubs in European competition, I think they've got the best start. I've got them top of my ticker across the first 6, 7, and 8. Across those first 8, it's Newcastle at home, trip to Brentford, Palace at home, trips to Everton and Sunderland, home games against Fulham and Burnley, and then a trip to Tottenham is game week 8. So define that how you want on Tottenham. But I think certainly you could say the first 7 is very good for Aston Villa. I did make a little note for them as well in terms of their European games that they're at home after their first 5 games in Europe.
Yep.
And remember, for Villa, it's going to be Thursday, Sunday job. Now, I think you can look at that either way. You can look at that and go, that's great. Where you go, right, well, these are the games we should be winning, so the tighter turnaround's good. But then it also puts you at risk in some of the fixtures that you'd normally feel very comfortable in. I saw my team lose at home to Ipswich on a Sunday after playing on a Thursday last year. I saw my team lose at home to Leicester on a Sunday after playing on a Thursday last year, right? So it does make those games a little bit more challenging. I think you can spin that narrative either way. My team's got a good start.
Yep.
Between going to the Etihad in game week 2 and the Emirates in game week 12, I think our toughest fixture in there is their home games, Villa, Chelsea, and Manchester United. I think across the first 7 is particularly strong. The first 9 as well, if you include trips, the home game with Villa and then the trip to Everton in game week 9. I've got Tottenham essentially right at the top. Across the first 9, I've actually got them top of my ticker, which is going to be an unforgiving summer for me, isn't it, Suj? James.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing is with yourselves, there'll probably be limited in terms of the number of assets that might be fantasy relevant. If you're going to pick a defender, it depends who stays, maybe Porro, Johnson. I don't think it's going to be like all 11 players might be potential assets. I think there might be 4 or 5.
I'm fairly certain that Pedro Porro is going to be really popular. One of the transfers I had already kind of, I'd say, looked at, but I know Palace have got a tough start, in my opinion. When Tottenham's fixtures get tougher, Palace's get a lot better. I could see that Porro to Munoz
Yep.
around about sort of like game week 10, for example. So I think most people would want Munoz. But if you compared the two, if they're at the same price, you probably would arguably go Porro off the start, particularly if you could afford to bench Porro at the Etihad in game week 2.
Particularly if Thomas Frank decides to play a back 3.
I don't think he will. I wouldn't say never, by the way, but I would be extremely surprised if that's the favoured formation. I wouldn't say we'll never see it, but I'd be extremely surprised. But he's going to end up being a potentially very, very good asset. Think more of the Pedro Porro that joined Tottenham originally. Were like, well, this is a player that's really free to just push on up the flank a lot more than obviously what we've seen. And listen, he gets into them pockets and he gets into really good shooting positions sometimes. But I think you'll find he's quite a free player. I think Tottenham will balance their defensive line to enable him to be able to really push on the right hand side. That's my instinct. So I think he'll be a really popular one. But that said, if he comes in at 5.5 and Udogie is 4.5, then it's the sort of one people go, well, I can save the million here. And if people are trying to fit in the Salahs and Haalands at the start, that's one you're going to be, yeah, okay, I can save my million here. So, yeah, obviously keep an eye on what happened on Tottenham. One note I would say on Tottenham is what I'd said to you on our Patreon podcast on Wednesday. I think Tottenham's transfer window is going to be really slow. I think Tottenham are going to end up doing quite a bit of business towards the end of the window. And I think that's not Tottenham are being slow again. Tottenham have got too many players. Got to get rid of some. And I think Frank needs to decide who he wants to keep and who he wants to get rid of. Brighton, I would consider, and I think the bookies consider outside the expected top 8, probably the next likely to breach through that again. And obviously, unlike sort of Forest and Palace, they don't have European football unless Palace get thrown out. I think their schedule is pretty balanced throughout the season. Brighton, they face the top 3 across 6 game weeks over Christmas, but also have Burnley and Sunderland over that run. So it's like you've got the 3 worst fixtures, but also the 2 best fixtures over a run of 6 fixtures.
But it's games like the games against the promoted sides or sides you'd expect them to beat at home, they struggled in last year.
Well, yeah, they drew at home to all of the 3 that got promoted last year and went back down.
As much as Burnley, Sunderland at home looks good, let's see what we get from Brighton.
I think Forest start is good start. I've got them second on my ticker across the first 6, which is Brentford at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Arsenal away, but then fixtures against Burnley and Sunderland. Problem with Forest is the Conference League and not quite knowing how serious that will or won't get treated. So I think like for opening day, like them first 2 home games, Brentford and West Ham, like pretty much appeal. It's worth saying they lost at home to Brentford last year. But the Palace game, you know it's going to be like a Sunday, or it could, I guess, be in theory be a Monday night in between those 2 European games. And that feels like more of a slog. Then it's Arsenal straight after the international break. I don't know if it's one of them because of the green fixtures do the green fixtures outweigh the rest of it? Because after game week 6, then it's Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth away, Man United, and Liverpool away a couple after that as well.
Let me see their team. Let me see their team is what I would say with Forest because
Pricing will
what
be
happens
important as well.
yeah, and the transfer window. Obviously, they've got some good assets there. That there might be people sniffing around, or they will buy players. They'll buy probably about 15, knowing the way that they operate. But yeah, I think there will be interesting assets for Forest. But really, let me see their team is what I would feel about them.
Um, One of the things that my ticker has on my planner on Slack via Patreon is a rolling difficulty. And I think if you look at difficulties at the start of the season, you'll find Bournemouth don't look great. And you can't look beyond that fixture at Liverpool in game week 1, right? If you look at game week 2 to 7, Bournemouth go right near the top of that ticker. So
Right.
immediately once you get Liverpool out of the way, that run of fixtures afterwards, Wolves at home, Tottenham away, Brighton, Newcastle at home, Leeds away, Fulham at home. I think it's a cluster of 6 is pretty good. Like if Tottenham are still weak, that's a really good run of 6 fixtures
Yeah.
actually, considering the Brighton and Newcastle games are at home. So just be a little bit wary of that because I think because they start at Liverpool, they'll get completely overlooked. But for example, I don't think someone like Evan Nilsson, if you're planning to run for longer, I don't think would be a bad pick at the
Hmm.
start. But people won't want to do it. Oh, I'm picking a forward. He's got Liverpool game week 1. He might save you a transfer further down the line by looking at a player like that. The fear with them, of course, is what we've discussed on many of our pods, so it's just about players leaving, isn't it?
Yeah, again, let me see their team. Let me see what that first 11 looks like at in game week 1 before I'm committing to Bournemouth really. But I do get your point. Like Evan Nielsen's not going to get a huge price jump. So if he's part of a strategy of rotation with another player, then yeah, worth it.
Now, Crystal Palace threw up something really interesting when I was doing a little bit of a analysis on them. Firstly, as I said, I noted down their fixtures after the Europa. It's not great. These are Crystal Palace's fixtures after Europa League games. Liverpool at home, Everton away, Arsenal away, Brighton at home, Man United, Man City, and Chelsea all at home, and Nottingham Forest away. It's not great.
All difficult.
Yeah, I would say. Well, even Brighton
Even
at home,
Everton away.
Brighton at
Everton
home, but
away.
it's the motorway rivalry, isn't it? Stuff like that.
They're all difficult, mate.
Everton away, new stadium,
New
etc.
stadium. They're all difficult.
Yeah, that's not great. There's no gimmies there for Palace at all after their European fixtures. But something more interesting was kind of brought to my attention by something I read on the Premier League's website yesterday. So I've got Palace worse on my ticker for the first 3. And I think with trips to Chelsea and Aston Villa, and also facing Nottingham Forest at home in game week 2, I think that's fairly understandable.
Hmm.
That's a tough opening 3, isn't it? Trips to Stamford Bridge and Villa Park.
Yeah.
Mate, if Arsenal had that, they'd be crying about that as well. I've got them on my ticker across the first 5, 14th. Opta have them joint first. I can't get my head around this.
Did they beat Forest at home last
It was
year?
1-1 late in the season, wasn't it?
Okay, and then you got
They drew at
Sunderland and West
Chelsea.
Ham
They
away.
drew at Chelsea and Villa last year. It's worth saying. They've obviously got the record against Villa, which is extraordinary. I mean, they've knocked Villa out of both cup competitions last season, and they beat them 4-1 and 5-0 in their last 2 meetings at Selhurst Park. So they've kind of got Villa's number. It is then Sunderland at home and West Ham away, 4 and 5.
Chelsea coming back from the Club World Cup, maybe. I mean, but you're really fishing here to try and get them top of the ticker for the first 5. Like really fishing.
Well, they've got them joint with Villa across the first 5. This is Opta's analysis that's actually on the Premier League's website. Villa, I agree with, but Palace, I don't.
Yeah.
So, but that disparity is huge. Opta have got them, and Opta will probably do their analysis a lot better than me. But I am puzzled by this. They have Palace on their ticker across the first 5, joint best. I've got them 14th. It's not close. I've got them as one of the worst. And I think that's primarily because of the first 3 fixtures that I think most fantasy managers will overlook them
Yeah.
at the start. Everton, as we said, obviously move into a new stadium. I've got them second on my ticker across the first 4. Trips to Leeds and Wolves are primarily why that's the case. We've also got home games against Brighton and Aston Villa. So I think that's a very reasonable start for them ahead of going to Anfield in game week 5. But then follows that is home fixtures against West Ham, and Crystal Palace. And I think it's that trip to Anfield in 5, and then also a trip to the Etihad in game week 8 that make Everton's first 10 look tougher than they really are. So I've got them ranked 7th across the first 10. But if you've got a nice rotatable option, which you may well be looking for, if you've got an Everton player, if you remove them 2 fixtures, then the other 8 are pretty good. So I think Everton quietly, their start is better than it looks.
No chance of that Brighton game being reversed as well. Like they wanted 3 away games to start with, didn't they? Now that they've been announced, I'm assuming
So
that game won't
what
be
I
moved.
what I heard from Sean, our Everton correspondent, was that the problems was something to do with the premium areas.
Right.
And when you see some of the pricing that Everton are offering for these premium areas, you can understand why if they weren't ready, they'd have wanted a game to be moved. Because the prices are, well, it's going to be interesting.
FIFA prices. Let's call them FIFA prices.
I'm going to call them more expensive than FIFA prices, mate.
That's big money then.
Yeah, no, we're talking, there's tickets for individual games that are like many people's fucking season ticket, mate.
Wow.
In some of the premium areas at Everton. Get in touch with our Everton correspondent, Sean Norton at Spirit Blues. He'll be happy to talk you through that. He'll do well to sell you one of them, though, I should imagine. But no, I think they've also now arranged a friendly with Roma for the weekend before the season starts at the Hilly Dick. Sorry, Toffees fans. So, yeah, no reason to think that that's going to change now. Your team, boss, the Super Hammers. I think it's a good start, mate. I've got you ranked 3rd across my first 5 on my ticker, 5th across the first 10. I've got essentially Arsenal away in game week 7 as your only real horrible fixture in the first 12, basically.
Yep.
I think it's a really good start.
Yeah, I mean, and again, if you're picking rotatable options, like a Wan-Bissaka, for example, if he still comes in the same price, 4.5, and you've got another 4.5 you want to rotate with, would be really interesting. Bowen, we know, is Mr. Consistent. There's enough home fixtures. He's always kind of, you don't worry about a fallback captain if all else fails on him, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think there'll be interesting West Ham players. I think similar to what I'm saying with Spurs, though, like there'll be 3 or 4 or 5 options. It's not like there's going to be a whole 11 that are potential assets at West Ham. It'll be some very obvious ones. There'll be one standout defender, one standout midfielder. There won't be a standout striker. So, yeah, I can see why people want a bit of West Ham, but I think it'll be very narrow in the number of players that might be interesting from that.
Question for you. Bearing in mind, obviously, we're going into game week 1. What would be long term? If you're thinking about having a player in FPL and you're thinking long term at the moment, what would you judge that up to? What's long term at this stage? Bearing in mind, obviously, it's a second wild card, so I don't think it can be, considering you've got a wild card to use before game week 19.
8-9 weeks, I would say, because remember, you're getting a transfer a week, right? So by the time you've got to game week 8, if you've used a transfer a week, you've changed more than half your squad. So I'd say 8-9 weeks.
I think longer than that, because I think if people know, and obviously circumstances can change, but if people know they want to use a wild card sort of over the Christmas period, then I think arguably you are looking towards sort of even up to sort of game week 14, 15. I think if you were really going, this guy's going in really long term. The thing is with Jared Bowen, I would say he's really rare here. If you're looking at him short term, medium term, or long term, he's a great pick.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it looks a great pick to me. What price would he have to be for you, do you think, not to start with
him? Double digits, even 9.5. At 9, 8.5, it'd almost be definitely 9.
They put a West Ham player in at like 9.5, mate. Can they do that?
9, I'd be gritting my teeth. 9.5 upwards, I'd be like, what else can I get for 9.5? Because I feel like I'd be able to pick up a midfielder from one of the top 6 or Champions League challenging teams for that kind of price. Like, let's say Cunha came in at a midfielder and he's at Man United now. Like, I don't think Bowen could be, Cunha might be like 8, 7.5, 8. So the disparity there you have to think about if Bowen was at 9.5.
Yeah, there'd have to be,
the answer's 9. Basically,
there'd have to be circumstances, I think, where you had other players going in there, like, I don't know, let's say Marmoush, Gakpo, who did you just mention? Sorry, Cunha.
But let's say
all
Gordon,
going as like mids
example,
and cheaper.
If Bowen was at 9, what price would Gordon have to be for you to go Gordon over Bowen? Like eight,
About six and a half,
7.5. Wow.
based on
Okay.
them
Well, he had a
fixtures at the
bad
start.
season. Yeah, I get that. But yeah, I think 9 is my cutoff with Jared Bowen. But again, when you're thinking about long term, if you want to say 14 weeks, I get that because by the time you get to game week 15, you've got 15 transfers. You could have changed your entire squad by then. But there will be other players that will be set and forgets, like your second goalkeeper and some bench fodder. So I think about 9 to 10 weeks, but yeah, he really is Mr. Consistent.
I think that the perfect combination of good short, medium, long term fixtures and it's starting with Sunderland away means he's going to be in so many teams. I think game week 1. Do you think because of that, should they price him higher than what they'd planned to? Do you think this that sort of thing goes into their discussion?
No,
Where they go,
no,
bloody hell, he's going to be in everyone's teams if we put him in at
no,
8. Like, do they
no,
think
because they
about that or
want
not?
players to be picked by people, don't they?
Yeah, agree with you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, um, yeah. To be honest, I look at him and I think he'd have to be some price for me not to start with him. I think
Mm, yeah.
with what you've got, yeah, good start. Fulham start's not too bad either. I've got them fourth across the first 5. That's primarily because of fixtures at home to Leeds and Brentford that look really nice in game weeks 4 and 5. Their opening 3 is Brighton away, at Chelsea away, sandwiched by Manchester United at home. Did we talk about Manchester United, Suj? I feel like we just skipped them.
We have. We have. On all your notes, you completely ignored them.
Did
They
I
should
not
have
even
been
put any?
between.
Did I not even put any notes down for Manchester
Nah,
United?
nah. They should be between. They should be between Aston Villa and Tottenham. So we should have talked to them about 4 teams
That's
ago.
should we? Let's just leave them to the end now because that'll rage bait enough on it. We
Yeah,
literally
let's do
forgot the
it.
biggest football club in the world. Sorry, guys. We'll do United at the end. Um, yeah, I think after other than that 4 and 5 though, it's not great. Like the fixtures afterwards: Villa away, Bournemouth away, Arsenal at home, Newcastle away. It's not great for Fulham. The 6 to 9 is awful. For Brentford, I'm a bit nervous for them having seen these fixtures.
Mm.
And obviously not quite known as yet what's happening with the managerial situation. But I've only got one green fixture in their first 12.
Yeah, I was looking up to Man City because I don't consider West Ham a yellow. I consider that green. But
Well,
then Liverpool, Palace, Newcastle. After, yeah, it's rough.
the,
Like you
the
could, yeah, it's rough.
the reason why it looks rough in terms of the lack of kind of easy fixtures is because their first 6 home games are against teams from the expected top 8. Their first 6 at home is Villa, Chelsea, United, City, Liverpool, Newcastle.
It's the reverse of last season where
It
they had a
is.
storming home set
Well,
of
they didn't
fixtures
have
to
any of
begin
these
with.
till they played Newcastle at home, which was about game week 14, I think, last
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
And they did win that, admittedly, but then they didn't win away from home for ages. And then in the second half of the season, they won about 6 or 7 in a row away from home, didn't they? So, I mean, I think that's really concerning. That opening start for Brentford doesn't look good. They do have a really good run game week 27 to game week 35 if they do land themselves in trouble. But quite interestingly, last 2 away games, of course, it's going to flip, isn't it? Last 2 away games, City and Liverpool. Wolves, I've got them ranked bottom on my ticker across the first 4, although it doesn't look horrendous. City and Everton at home, Bournemouth and Newcastle away. And the longer I look on my ticker, there's a consistency where Wolves keep growing. They keep going up and up on my tables. So I think like game week 5 to 10 is a really good run. Leeds, Tottenham, Brighton, Sunderland, Burnley, Fulham. So it does come back around. So actually, they're a perfect case example. You look at the first 4 and you go, no, don't like that. City and Newcastle in there, rough. But actually, if you look across the first 10, it's a little bit like the scenario with Everton. If you just take the City and Newcastle fixtures out, it's pretty good.
Yeah, let's see what type of squad they have. Losing Cunha's no joke. Losing Eight Nori ain't no joke. Let's see what type of squad they end up with. Because again, I feel like they're dark horses potentially for relegation.
Well,
And
I wouldn't call them dark horses for it because if you look at the
it's happened.
if you look at the bookmakers odds
Well,
at the
they're fourth
moment,
from bottom.
oh yeah, exactly that. But it's also you've got the bottom 3 as a cluster predicted to go down. Then there's Wolves, and then it's a jump to actually Brentford now. So Brentford are like kind of comfortably clear of it. So it really is kind of Wolves that the bookies are most nervous for at the moment. And with that in mind, it's worth noting that they play all of the promoted three sides in their last six fixtures.
Right.
For the promoted three, Leeds ranked fourth across the first 10 fixtures. I think it's a pretty good start for them. I've got them for only kind of one red in their first 12, similar to yourselves, Suj, and it's the same as with you. It's also an away game at Arsenal for Leeds. It's in game week 2. And again, I think because it's in game week 2, their fixtures look worse. You see them playing Arsenal in 2 and Newcastle in 3, and you go, that's grim. Yeah, but look at Leeds fixtures game week 5 to 9. It's great. Home games
Yep.
against Bournemouth, Tottenham, West Ham, trips to Wolves, Burnley. It's good.
Yep.
Burnley have had a disaster here. I'm already dreading. I'm not dreading because I love speaking to him, but I'm already dreading the conversation with Jack on Correspondent Week about the start that they've got because it's so rough. I've got them bottom of my ticker first 7, 8, 9, and 10, and that is despite the fact that they play Sunderland and Leeds at home in that run because it also includes 6 of the expected top 8. They travel to Tottenham opening day, Manchester United game week 3, they've got Liverpool at home game week 4, City and Villa away in 6 and 7. They've got Arsenal at home in 10. Also got Nottingham Forest to play over that run as well. It is the pressure on those two home games against the two promoted sides already. Southampton had this a bit last year, where they'd kind of the easiest on paper home fixtures right near the start. Like Ipswich and Leicester were quite early on for them, and they didn't win either of them. And there is a psychological on that, I think. It's the
Yep.
kind of the easiest games on paper. We didn't win them. Everything else just feels tougher. And I'm not saying it's a consequence why Southampton had quite such a bad season, but it doesn't help. And them fixtures around those Sunderland Leeds games for Burnley put such a bloody pressure on them. You even look further on, you see, right, so what's after game week 10? We've got Chelsea at home in 12, away games at West Ham and Brentford, 11, 13. We've got Palace in 14, Newcastle away 15. I recognise that, so it's like, hang on, James, name 15 of their fixtures. Yeah, I know, and it's still looking bad. There's only 19. And obviously, for those sides that have come up, it does look particularly tough.
Yeah.
But Burnley have pulled out the absolute worst of it. And that's particularly considering for Leeds, I think it looks pretty good. And for Sunderland, they've got an absolutely brilliant start.
Yep.
Many of the reactions on our Patreon was treble Sunderland for game week 1 then. And
Yeah,
that
maybe
wasn't
not.
that wasn't just because they were playing West Ham, but I've got them top of my ticker for the first 2, 3, 4, 5, and then for the first 10 fixtures overall as well. That opening 3 fixtures of West Ham at home, Burnley away, and Brentford at home will not be bettered by anyone. No one's even close to it, in my opinion. That's one of the best 3-game runs of the season that anyone's got. I've only got, by the way, there's only one team I've got from my ticker that's got 4 green fixtures in a row, which, by the way, is Wolves. Not Wolves, sorry, it's Brentford, which starts with Wolves in game week 30. That's the Brentford run I mentioned towards the end of the season. So yeah, Sunderland's fixtures really good. 4 to 7 looks tougher. Trips to Palace, Forest, Manchester United, and a home game with Villa. But then that's followed afterwards by home fixtures in 8 and 10 respectively against Wolves and Everton. So really good start for Sunderland. That's why I feel particularly sorry for Burnley, because it's like the other two have come up and they've got really good starts. But perhaps the reason I didn't make any notes on Manchester United, so just because, yeah, it's pretty rough.
Arsenal at home, Fulham away, City away as 3 of the first 4. Yeah, not
And then
great.
Chelsea in 5.
At home afterwards. They've got the
Got
Burnley
Liverpool
fixture
away
in
in 8.
between, but yeah, not great.
It's similar pressure. So United have got Burnley at home and Sunderland away in 3 and 7. Right. Can you imagine if they
Sunderland
go badly
at home,
around? They're both at home. Imagine
Yeah.
if they go badly around those difficult fixtures also go badly. Now listen, when you look at United's first 3, Arsenal at home, Fulham away, Burnley at home. Right. We drew at home to Arsenal last year. Won at home to Fulham. They'll obviously fancy beating a promoted team at home. They actually won at Manchester City. Drew at home to Chelsea. So actually, across the first 5, which I know people have mentioned specifically, actually the results in the same fixtures from last season were pretty good. And some of United's better fixtures, better performances last year were in some of the tougher games, except the Europa League final. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, I got a soft spot for Manchester United next season. I think they're doing good bits of business in the window. I think they will start the season very different to how they were this season. I think Amarim will have benefit a lot from having the whole summer with the team. And depending on if Mbeumo ends up there or what price Cunha comes in, I think there'll be assets that will be interesting. Look at Bruno Fernandes last year. United were bang average. In fact, worse than bang average, mate. They finished below us in the table. First time in Premier League history that they ever did that.
And last, probably.
Well, nah, I don't know about last, mate. But based on their financials, I think they're more at risk of getting relegated if things really implode badly. Maybe not, probably not. But I think they will. Bruno Fernandes was, my point is, Bruno Fernandes was still a very interesting asset throughout, right? Diallo as well will be an interesting asset because based on the fact that he missed so much with injury, I don't think he can get a big price rise really coming into this season. I think
he's not going to be in that 5 bracket again, though, like the others I've mentioned.
No, but you also won't have a 7 at the start of his price, I don't think. So I think there'll be interesting assets at Manchester United.
Yeah, it feels like we might lose Fernandes as one, though.
Yeah, maybe because of someone like Cunha or Boma might be.
But Bumo's going to go there, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah. I think there'll be assets, and I still think they'll buy a striker.
Yes.
So suddenly forward slots were difficult, but I think this year will be really interesting. Like I got eyes on Delap's price coming into the start of the season. Isak, we know about Haaland. Watkins will be really popular. If Gyökeres turns up in the league, Sesko turns up in the league, Solanke can't be overlooked. I think striker positions, last year was a bit of a struggle to find any good strikers. Evan Nielsen, interesting. I think there'll be more strikers that will be of interest this year.
All right. Should we finish with some cues, boss?
Yes. Oh, James, you're putting me on the spot. So do you
want to tell everyone what we're doing for the weekend? Absolutely nothing.
Well, I was going to say, what are you doing for the weekend? Watching FIFA Club World Club Championship Conference.
Shout out to, I was very surprised this morning to see Botafogo beating PSG in the middle of the night.
I didn't see that. I saw Palmeiras won, didn't they? And Porto were drawing with Inter Miami. Was the last time I checked.
I'll save Club World Cup chat for Monday.
Okay, but yes, let's give a shout out to Botafogo. John Texter, loving it. Was he loving it?
I guess so.
FPL graduates, James, we're asking captaincy rotation through the first day. We've been through that, so we've given our opinion on that. Lee Jackson, do we need to change our stance on Villa defenders? No, despite you telling me that Villa were really good for the opening set of fixtures, I wouldn't be looking at them defensively. They still lead goals.
Oh, I think if you're looking for a longer term, you've got something sitting in there at 4.5. I think that'll be interesting. Even if it is just as a rotatable, I think that'd be pretty interesting. If you look at Villa's home fixtures, I'll just run through them. So Newcastle, Palace, Fulham, Burnley, City, Bournemouth, Wolves, before Arsenal in game week 15. There's got to be something there that rotates quite nicely, I think. There's a few decent away games in there as well. So yeah, I think I tell you what I've got in mind for Villa actually is Ian Maatsen. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't come in at 4.5, and I think he's Lee will tell us on correspondent week. We'll put the pressure on him, but I think he's probably going to become first choice at Villa. I think he might be an interesting one at 4.5.
I think if I'm looking for 4.5s, I might be looking for bigger upside with attacking returns. Not sure. Not that I'm just asking questions from correspondents, but Adam has jumped in, obviously with an Arsenal question. That's Adam Pritchard, our Arsenal correspondent. Agree or disagree? You can avoid Arsenal players until October.
Agree. Like, can you? Of course.
West Ham at home game. Yeah. It's only the Leeds at home game. There's really no can't.
There's no can't on this channel. But yeah, ultimately the answer is yes, you can. But I will give that caveat. Like when you strip it away, so you can look at the first 6 and say, yeah, fine, I'll take on Arsenal. Ultimately, my opinion would be at this moment, if game week 2 was game week 1 and I wanted to bench boost and wildcard straight out of it, I'd be captain Saka. And Saka right now would be the best captaincy in game week 2. And it might even be that it's like a Sesko with Gabriel Jesus to get like 2 goals and 2 assists in his first home game for Arsenal, I think, against Leicester from memory. I wouldn't completely rule them out. What I would say is probably, particularly as well, if you were going to be thinking of an earlyish wild card, it's difficult to think that you would pay 6 million for Gabriel, for example, or
Yeah.
5.5 for Raya based on them fixtures at the start. You probably wouldn't. I think Arsenal fans should look at it as an opportunity because, as I said, if they do really well out of them first six, they're in.
Damien Bruins, I hope I pronounced his surname correctly. He wants to know which player's positioning might be a surprise in your opinion. He's noted down Cunha, Gakpo, Diaz. Well, Gakpo moving back to midfield, Cunha moving to midfield.
Well, Diaz could be a forward, couldn't he? Or there's every chance he might move on, maybe. Particularly if Liverpool, I mean, if Liverpool really did push through for Isak, then I could definitely see Luis Diaz leaving the club, I would say.
Yep.
I don't think any would be a surprise. I mean, what do we think, Marmoush? Midfielder, forward? I think it's midfielder, isn't it? I think.
Midfielder for me. Yeah, I think a midfielder. I don't think there will be many. I don't think there
I
will. Like
think
a Havertz will stay as a striker.
the simple logic that FPL have worked towards, or if you're a wide forward, you are a
Hmm.
midfielder.
A winger,
So I
basically.
think
Yeah.
Illiman and Dyer might be a really interesting one that should also get reclassified to a midfielder. If anything, we'll be taking more away from the forward pole.
Yep. Liam wants to know in the first 8 game weeks, are there any triple ups you like? You've obviously said no.
It's price independent because I could, if I decide, right, yeah, I'm not going to wild card till December, I could definitely see me starting with a trio like Matson, Rogers, Watkins, subject to the pricing.
The only thing I would
If
say
I'm
as
looking at
well
it longer
is
term.
in terms of tripling up, it does then lock you off that third asset. So if someone in any of the teams suddenly has a good run or it comes out of left field that we didn't expect, then you're obviously making 2 transfers to find the way, unless it's a direct move left to right. I do think, yeah, sometimes tripling up does stop you from going directly to an asset because you're blocking yourself.
Tottenham
And you
as
can
well.
sometimes make that mistake with like your third goalkeeper, a second goalkeeper, or third bench player or something where you've picked it for a certain team and it's blocked you off. So yeah, that's
I,
what
I
I
could
would say.
definitely see teams again thinking longer term, maybe thinking about treble Tottenham. So two from, or three, sorry, from say goalkeeper Porro, Udogi, Johnson, Solanke, and subject to anything else we might buy as well. And I think Forest actually as well. I looked at a draft potentially the bench boost in game week 1. I had trouble Forest, and actually if you held that those Forest players, other than game weeks 2 and 4, you'd be pretty happy having them in 3, 5, and 6. So if you've got Forest players are obviously going to get a hike, right? But I wouldn't say if Wood is 7, 7.5, I wouldn't say Chris Wood is a bad pick for them first six. If Antti Elanga is 6 million, I wouldn't say he's a bad pick for those first six. If Nico Williams is maybe still 4.5 and the rest get a push to 5, he might become someone where everyone goes, that's a great enabler possibly to have, right? So Forest another one I'd consider for that. But I don't see it being, truthfully, I don't see it being from, I guess, the expected, let's say, top 5. Probably not. Chelsea, maybe. If I'd kind of determined I was going to wild card sort of 4, 5, I'd probably go treble Chelsea, maybe.
Cool. Okie dokie. That's a wrap on the questions, James. Anything else you want to add?
Nah, have a good weekend, everyone. Smash a like, hit
Indeed,
the
it
sub
is the
button.
weekend. So, if you want to subscribe to the show wherever you may be, we're on our march to hit 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. It'd be lovely to have you part of the subscribers over there. Or if you're listening to the audio, just subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you are listening to the show on. Patreon's where you can get access to James's planner. So if you want to head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL and sign up, even at basic tier, you get access to our Slack community and the planning spreadsheets.
Basic plus,
Basic Plus, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if Basic exists anymore, does it?
yeah.
Yeah, it does. Okay,
If
so
people want it,
Basic
because we never plug it, but if you're
Plus.
sick of the adverts,
Just
basic
go
tier.
basic
No
tier,
ads
gets you
and early
no
releases.
ads. Good, good, good. Listeners, other than that, though, have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Keep cool because I hear a heat wave in England. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way always. Cue music, please, man child.